In 2025, the need for competent information analysts in the civilian world is mucho humongo. As I've said many times, you are a player on the 3D chessboard of fifth-generational warfare and geopolitics, whether you like it or not. So train like a higher-level piece and don't be a pawn in the hands of others. This video is meant to make you aware of some tools you can use to get raw data for your own analysis, not just whatever watered-down or highly loaded narratives meant to confuse, mislead, or obfuscate everyday citizens are out there. OSINT, or Open Source Intelligence, is information available to the general public that can be analyzed to glean intel relevant to various critical incidents or other conflicts and natural disasters. It typically comes from online sources these days, including social media or websites, news sources, or raw data from government websites. I'm making this video for two reasons. One is I think intelligence gathering and analysis is one of the most important skills for prepared citizens to cultivate in modern times. Avoiding kinetic conflict altogether is the best way to fight wars, and citizens are the primary target of information operations these days, or PSYOPs, so knowing how to resist PSYOPs, or even conduct your own, will be a major enhancement in the citizen battle space. The other reason I'm making this video is also for you to tell me what tools I forgot to include in the video in the comments below. Just let me know so that I can add them to my toolbox and be smarter. So first is maps, and I am going to start with the Arcgis map. Quick shout out to S2 Underground. A lot of these I learned originally from his channel before mastering them myself, especially the radio and transponder monitoring sites. The rest I found from various sources over the years. In that vein, the first tool is S2 Underground's Arcgis tracker. It's a brand new tool that he used to track the Los Angeles fires recently, and now has expanded to track multiple critical incidents going on around the world. You can see various data that he's imported from certain satellites. You can read intercepted GhostNet messages, get relevant wire transcripts attached to their geographic locations. I'm sure this tool will continue growing and become more and more useful throughout the year. Next is Liveuamap. This was a map created in 2014 after the first Russian incursion into Crimea and Donbass, made by two Ukrainian software engineers. It's using automated spider bots that crawl X and Telegram for news or eyewitness sightings, and then it plots them on a map with a legend that tells you what genre of thing is happening there. There are different theaters you can view, not just the Russo-Ukrainian war, but also the Middle East, America, dozens of different countries and continents and stuff. Since it's an automated system, it does sometimes make mistakes. For instance, I've seen it plot things in the wrong state, or there might be a common place name like Washington or Madison, so you gotta watch out for that. Next is DeepState. This one is another one used by followers of the Russo-Ukraine war, which goes into even more in-depth about certain things, troop movements, deployed equipment, and their ranges, other battlefield information. I'm not aware of any uses for this mapping system beyond this one particular conflict, but it might end up getting used to track other conflicts as well. Next is Sentinel Data. I like this one because I actually worked on a Sentinel spacecraft once, putting together a radar altimeter calibration device thing in a clean room. It could get down to millimeter precision on its altitude, so it is used for measuring sea level measurements. There's a whole series, though, of Earth-observing satellites in the Sentinel series that do different things. Sentinel-1 has general radar imaging, mostly for weather, I think. Sentinel-2 provides optical imaging for just visible in IR, just general imaging capabilities. Sentinel-3 provides more rapid revisit time. So with different sensors, because it has a orbit that will revisit the same sites more rapidly. Then there's Sentinels 4 and 5, which have not launched yet, but they're actually slated to go this year in 2025. They'll be offering more data for atmospheric monitoring. Sentinel 6 has launched. That one is the one that I worked on, has the radar altimeter, and it's designed to measure sea currents, find new shipping lanes to the North Pole, etc. Prepared citizens can find a lot of uses for imaging data. Obviously, it's not going to be super high resolution. It's not meant for spying on your neighbors, but you can find a lot of useful information, general trends from this imaging data. And it's open source and free. You don't need to pay for it like some of the satellite services. Next is Outage Map. This one is pretty self-explanatory, but this map shows where the local grid is down and how many utility customers are affected. Next, we have USGS earthquake monitoring. I don't refer to this one often because tremors will show up on Liveuamap, but this is where the real-time raw data comes from. Oh, and one of the use cases, this isn't necessarily just for earthquakes, natural earthquakes. It can alert you to other man-made activity as well. For example, there were seismic activity detected when Ukraine set off that ammo dump in Russia, and that was you could tell from these sensors that something had happened in that region. Another example was, I think, when they blew up some tunnels in Gaza. Also, other man-made things that aren't just explosions. You know, the Three Gorges Dam famously created several small earthquakes when it was finally filled up. So lots of interesting stuff related to seismic sensors. The next category we're going to discuss are transponders, tracking various vehicles in the air or sea. So the first thing is ADS-B exchange. Now, a lot of people may have used FlightAware to check on their friend's flight or whatever, but where does this data come from? All aircraft are required to have a transponder that transmits their coordinates, altitude, bearing, and velocity, some other information like registration, various codes and squawks. And this is all in a protocol called ADS-B. So there's a better website for tracking aircraft called ADS-B Exchange. This compiles data from ADS-B receivers all over the world and publishes it online in real time that you can just watch. So ADS-B Exchange gives you the full unfiltered data. Other sites like FlightAware might censor certain flight data, but this provides access to all ADS-B, also Mode S and MLAT, multilateration data. Don't have to worry about what that means, but the main point is that it has everything that can be measured with a receiver. This means that even military or private and government flights can be tracked without suppression. This operates with a strong, I'd say, community-based model. So a lot of this data is supplied by private receivers. So it relies on a network of volunteers who feed the data from their ADS-B receivers to the website. So there's a very wide coverage. It's free. It's just to use basic tracking. There are some paid options for some enhanced data stuff, but all the key features are right there. The user interface, I'd say, is very intuitive. It provides lots of data right at your fingertips. You can also filter for military aircraft, for example, just pressing the U button in the corner. The U actually is for the U-2 spy plane. I don't know why that's their button for tracking all military aircraft. Some of them obviously won't have their transponders on, but generally if they're flying routine training or cargo missions over the continental US, they'll always have them on, unless maybe it's like a 5th generation stealth fighter they never have them on. The icon on the map shows a fairly accurate planform depiction of the aircraft. And tapping it shows some additional information, even including user-supplied photographs of that specific tail number sometimes. A more advanced usage of this would be to get your own ADS-B receiver, and that way you don't have to rely on the internet for aircraft operating in your vicinity anyway. But I don't think most people need to do that. Next is MarineTraffic. So like ADS-B, MarineTraffic offers the real-time tracking of maritime vessels in this case. So this site uses AIS, that's Automatic Identification System, to show you where ships are. To show you where the ships are. And that includes their speed, where they're headed. For the prepared citizen, you can monitor ports, you can track specific ships for security, or just keep tabs on global shipping patterns. I'd say one cool feature is that you can see historical data, which is very useful for tracking a specific ship's movements over time, analyzing trade routes, or if there's any funny business going on with that vessel. So there's a free version. It does have some limitations, but you'll just get data from terrestrial signals, not any satellite coverage. Might be a little bit limited in very remote parts of the ocean, but towards the coasts, it will always be pretty good. If you're into deeper analysis, the satellite tracking probably could help too. Not all ships use AIS, especially the smaller ones. Some of them might switch it off for privacy or to avoid scrutiny, though they're not supposed to do that. Also, the accuracy can vary due to signal interference or delays, but we're not as concerned with ships because they're slower moving and it will reacquire eventually. But anyone interested in maritime intelligence or just kind of curious what's going on at sea, this is one that I think gets overlooked a lot. By the way, quick story about this. The group I'm in, there used to be a member that was leaning a little bit too much on the conspiratorial paranoid side, which there's nothing wrong with that in and of itself. But the problem is he quickly shared an article he found without doing his due diligence to check its veracity. And it actually was even a labeled satire or fake news story that was about, supposedly there's this vessel called the Morning Star that was intercepted off the coast of California with hundreds of trafficked children, and they sent in the SEALs to liberate them. And it was all made up. It was very easy to just quickly look up that ship on here and see, nope, this is way over on the other side of the world. It's in Hong Kong or Singapore or something. Nothing nefarious going on. But yeah, he's not with us anymore for a bunch of reasons like that. I was pretty nice about it then. I said, I know stuff like this happens all the time and it's a big deal, but on this specific case, I think this is not real. But our leader of the group was maybe not as patient. And look, we all have conspiracies that we believe, and the Alex Jones was right jar is full of nickels. But the point is, please just give 2 seconds thought, rub 2 brain cells together before blindly pushing stuff, because there are a lot of people out there that will take advantage of your natural inclination towards a certain issue. I'll put it that way. The next genre of OSINT tools I labeled online radio monitoring. There's so much information that is transmitted over the airwaves, not just broadcasted on, FM and AM, but stuff that you can actually intercept and listen in on. So the first way to do that would be through WebSDR. So WebSDR, first of all, software-defined radio, SDR, it's a type of radio where the components that are part of the radio hardware, like the amplifier, modulator, all that kind of stuff. Instead of all that protocol happening at the hardware level, it is implemented by means of software on a computer, And this flexibility allows SDRs to support multiple frequency bands, different modulation types, simply by checking boxes in the software, rather than needing specific hardware for each function. Basically, an SDR uses wideband antenna connected to a generic piece of hardware. It's actually just a little USB dongle, that's the whole radio, which digitizes the incoming signals, processes them in software, making it a highly versatile SIGINT tool, signals intelligence. You can do this directly with your own SDR, but the beauty of WebSDR is that you can select various receivers all over the world and listen in on local radio traffic, whatever can be intercepted at that geographic location. Most of these SDRs support multiband or even all band reception. The SDR I have at home just has a little rabbit ear antenna, and I can receive all kinds of signals from VHF all the way down to the low end of HF and AM. There's a lot you can do with SDR beyond just listening in on voice transmissions. For instance, you can run it through software for digital modes like JS8 call, FT8, VARA, WinLink, all that stuff. For that, you need a special audio driver called Cable, which feeds the audio stream from your computer into these programs. That's how a lot of people are doing GhostNet these days, which I've talked about in the past, and getting these messages straight to their laptop from someone else's radio far, far away. Next would be Broadcastify for scanner traffic. So this is a great way to get primary information on critical incidents happening in different places. Most scanner traffic is open and unencrypted, though bigger police departments will have secondary secure comms for sensitive information. More and more police departments are going that direction.
7-4. Everything under control, no use you needed?
7-4, everything under control, no use you needed.
This one I'd say is well worth the premium service. If you pay just $15 for 6 months or $30 for the year, you can get access to archived scanner traffic that go back years. Just go to the specific county, select EMS or police channel, whatever you're interested in, find the date, and they're broken up into about 35-minute sections. So this allows you to go back and analyze critical incidents that interest you or happened in your area. Next up, we have HFGCS network, which is a global strategic communications network by the United States Air Force, and that is for those E-6 command and control aircraft to relay what are called emergency action messages, EAMs, and it's all for nuclear readiness and all that kind of stuff. It's an unencrypted analog single sideband channel on HF, but they are speaking in code using one-time pads or those dryad sheets, so you can't know what they're talking about. But it is interesting still to monitor because you can gauge various information about things going on in the world based on the frequency of these messages and who is transmitting them, because they'll give their call signs and all that. There's also sometimes some people are like posing as HFGCS and transmitting fake messages. That's kind of weird. There's lots of weird intel you can get just by monitoring this network. Personally, I don't have time to monitor it, and most people don't, but there are a few specialized channels on YouTube and X that will post summaries of what they've gleaned from these networks, such as Neat Intel, who's a little bit of a weeaboo, but he posts really solid analysis and summaries for us.
556 emergency action messages were broadcast in November. This number is above average. Major events that occurred this month and are worth highlighting include a Minuteman III test launch, a region message, and nuclear execution reports from B-52 bombers.
Finally, we have a catch-all category for other things that I think are useful, like DownDetector. That's useful for determining how widespread a service disruption may be, and if it may be a DDoS attack or other cyber attack. Sometimes when cell service or like Microsoft and a bunch of big infrastructure all go down at once, you know there's some kind of shenanigans going on out there. So DownDetector monitors services across the globe. It operates by aggregating user input from its website, also mobile apps, even social media, to compile a live overview of service disruptions. So if you're facing issues with the internet or streaming services, other online platforms, DownDetector will help you quickly determine if it's a widespread problem or just an issue on your end. So that's the idea of what it's supposed to be used for, but a lot of people have been monitoring it to figure out if there's anything else going on. Next is the ODIN Worldwide Equipment Guide. So say you see a weird looking plane fly over your area of operations, you just see an unusual military truck trundling by your street, and you want to know what it is, go to this website. It's far from comprehensive, but it gets detailed enough that you can find an answer for pretty much most things. You can sort it by tier level, that is how new it is, what country of origin or country that has adopted it. You can filter for battlefield domain, land, sea, sky, or cyber, and add some keywords, and boom, there you go. Look at a picture, see some specs, see what it's capable of, and now you understand better what equipment is operating in your area. Next up, I'm going to actually throw Grok on this list. I might catch some flack for this one, but you could arguably use Grok as an OSINT tool, specifically for things like aggregating news sources, analyzing social sentiment on various events that go down. It can analyze and interpret lots of data that is available online in various ways, like scanning through news articles and social media posts directly, other public databases, gathering real-time information on emerging local or global events happening out there. So that'll help you stay ahead of various trends or crises. You can look at various patterns that are happening on X, its native platform, to gauge public sentiment. You can track the spread of information or misinformation, to use a buzzword, on specific topics. Unlike traditional search engines like Google, you can give it complex queries. It doesn't have to be a simple keyword-based thing. Ask complex queries for correlations between seemingly unrelated data points, like say, tracking supply chain disruptions by monitoring shipping news or weather reports, other local government announcements. It can make those connections a lot easier than traditional search engines up till now. And I would say currently, as of the release of this video, Grok is the best one for that it uses up-to-date information. I know I haven't actually used ChatGPT for that ever. Maybe it's gotten better recently. I don't actually know, but just my 2 cents on it. Finally, HUMINT. And for that, we go to social media groups, other private forums, private discords. And, private groups kind of get away from the whole OSINT concept, but it's still the best place to go for HUMINT, human intelligence. A word of caution on some of the big name social media accounts. The grift is real. Just remember when Elon Musk told us that we are the media now? That is absolutely true. And we're starting to see how we as the media can be bought up just like traditional legacy media to push certain narratives. Frankly, if we're going to take it seriously, we better do our own due diligence in scrutinizing information before pushing it. Just to give some examples of this, like a very recent one, the whole transgender pilot thing on the crash, that was so dumb. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if that was controlled opposition, like the whole, if you know who Saul Alinsky is, use your enemy's reactions against them. So put out something fake that your enemy will just blindly push and then laugh at their reaction. So we react to it, they get to fact check it and make their enemies look stupid. Yeah, it's all just a big game of demoralization, and we should be careful. Final thoughts. I have found you will go deeper and learn a lot more if you're producing a product. That forces you to go past the headlines and not just be a consumer yourself. So this might be a regular weekly or monthly intelligence report you prepare for your group or your militia. for your normie family members or followers online, whatever, or maybe just for your own records. It really forces you to think, when you're writing, when you're compiling, you are using your brain, and that's an important skill. So keep a journal if nothing else, or write a blog, or put out weekly updates for your Signal group for your members. Get in the habit of doing that. Every group needs at least 1 or 2 people dedicated to that, and everyone should have that skill. So that's my list of top OSINT tools. You let me know, what did I leave out? What have you found useful or informative in your investigations and monitoring stuff? Let me know down in the comments, and I'll be glad to add them to my toolbox. So thanks for watching this video. If you found it useful, it really motivates me to keep going when I see people click that subscribe, especially because it means please make more. That's what I interpret that as. So thank you so much for my supporters.